Good evening, listeners. My name is EveningWhisperTales. Tonight, I'll be telling you some scary horror stories to help you relax and fall asleep. If you enjoy this channel, I'd really appreciate it if you like and subscribe. Now, let's begin our evening together. Story 1. My son wouldn't come out of the trees. We weren't supposed to stop. That was the rule I'd repeated to myself the entire drive. No random pull-offs, no let's just stretch for a minute. No wandering into places without names on the map. We were already behind schedule, daylight thinning fast, the sky going from pale blue to bruised purple as the road wound deeper into forest. But my son Ethan had been quiet for too long. 8-year-old quiet, the kind that meant he was either asleep or planning something. "Ethan," I said, glancing in the rearview mirror. He wasn't asleep. He was staring out the window, not at the road, not at the sky, at the trees. They rushed past in dark vertical blurs, pine and cedar packed tight, undergrowth swallowing the spaces between trunks. Every now and then a dirt track cut off from the highway, unmarked, narrow, already half claimed by weeds. "Dad," he said slowly. "Yeah? Those trees are the same." I frowned. "What do you mean?" He squinted, forehead pressed to the glass. "We passed that one already." I slowed without meaning to. "They all look alike, buddy." "No." He pointed. "That one's bent, and that rock, and the stick shaped like a Y." My stomach tightened. The speedometer said 50. The scenery shouldn't repeat. Then my phone lost signal. The little bars vanished one by one. The radio cut mid-song, voice stretching into a warped drawl before dropping into silence. I checked the clock. 6:42 p.m. It had been 6:42 for a while. "How about I started. Ethan unbuckled. The click sounded too loud. "Hey, don't do that." "I just want to look." "We're not stopping." The car slowed anyway. I hadn't touched the brake. The shoulder widened into a gravel pull-off that I didn't remember seeing. No sign, no picnic table, just crushed stone and trees leaning close, branches reaching over the edge of the road like ribs. The engine idled. Ethan's door handle clicked. "Ethan?" He opened it before I could finish. Cold air slid in, sharp and wet, carrying the smell of moss and old leaves and something faintly metallic underneath. He stepped out. "Get back in the car." "I just want to check the tree." "What tree?" "The crooked one." He walked toward the tree line, too fast. I killed the engine and got out, gravel crunching under my shoes. "Ethan, stop." He slowed, didn't turn around. The forest was quiet. No birds, no insects, no wind. Every sound seemed to stop at the edge of the trees, like the woods had its own rules about noise. "Come back," I said, keeping my voice calm even as something cold slid into my ribs. He stood just inside the shadow of the branches. "I hear something." "What?" He tilted his head. "Me." My pulse jumped. "What do you mean?" "It sounds like me," he said softly. I took a step forward. The gravel ended, leaf litter began. The air cooled the second I crossed the invisible line between road and forest, like stepping into a basement. "Ethan, that's enough." He lifted one hand, not waving, pointing deeper between the trunks. "There's another boy," he said. I scanned the trees. Nothing moved, no flash of color, no silhouette, just bark and shadow layered so tightly it hurt to focus. "There isn't." "Yes, there is." "Where?" He swallowed. "Behind that tree." I walked up beside him, gripping his shoulder. The forest smelled stronger here. Wet soil, sap, something sweet and rotten at the same time. I don't see anyone. Ethan frowned. That's because he's standing the wrong way. Wrong way how? He's facing me. I tightened my grip. Get in the car. He didn't resist. That scared me more than if he had. We turned together. The road was still there, the car too, but it felt farther, like the gravel had stretched. Ethan whispered, "He's closer now." I didn't look back. I carried him the rest of the way. When I shoved him into his seat and slammed the door, my hands were shaking. I locked it, got in, started the engine. It hesitated, coughed, then turned over. I pulled back onto the road without checking mirrors. We drove. The trees blurred again. The radio came back to life mid-song. My phone pinged, signal restored. The clock ticked forward. 6:43. I exhaled, slow, careful. Ethan hadn't spoken. I glanced back at him. He was watching the rear window. Dad? Yes. He didn't follow us. Relief washed through me. Good. A pause. Then he went the other way. My throat went dry. What other way? He leaned closer to the glass, through the trees. I swallowed. And he's faster in there. Story 2. My wife swore the mirror was late. We were already inside the motel when she said it. The kind of roadside place you only choose when it's getting dark and you've been driving too long. Buzzing sign, thin carpets patterned with stains no one had bothered to hide. Lobby smelling faintly of bleach and burned coffee. Ethan had fallen asleep in the car almost immediately after the trees. His head tipped against the window, breath fogging the glass. I carried him inside. The clerk didn't look up when we checked in. Not rude, just fixed. Her eyes stayed on the computer screen while she slid the keycard across the counter. Room 12, ground floor. You're headed east, she said. I frowned. We are? She nodded once. Didn't elaborate. The room smelled cleaner than it should have. Sharp detergent and ozone, like someone had just finished airing it out with a fan. The curtains were drawn even though it was still twilight outside, and the TV glowed blue with no signal. My wife set our bags down slowly. This place feels off. It's fine, I said, because that's what you say when you don't want your kid waking up scared. I put Ethan on the nearer bed and kicked off my shoes. My wife went into the bathroom. She stopped, didn't come back out. Everything okay? I called. Come here. Her voice was thin. I walked over. She stood in front of the sink, staring at the mirror. What? She pointed. The mirror reflected the bathroom, reflected her, reflected me. Normal. What am I looking at? She swallowed. Watch. She raised her hand. The reflection followed. After a second, not much, just enough to make my stomach twist. She lowered it. The reflection lagged again, a soft, syrupy delay. I laughed once, too loud. You're tired. She shook her head. Do it, she said. I lifted my hand. My reflection hesitated, then copied me. Half a beat late. My chest tightened. That's weird. Mirrors. Don't do that. I leaned closer. The glass was cold. I waved both hands quickly. The reflection stuttered, like buffering video, then caught up. The lights flickered. For an instant, the reflection didn't. My wife whispered, "It blinked." I stared. It hadn't. Now it was normal. Too normal. I leaned in closer. So did my reflection. At the same time. Then it smiled. I hadn't. Story 3. My daughter waited at the bottom of the stairs. The house wasn't ours. That was obvious the moment we stepped inside. We were staying with friends, people my wife knew from college. While passing through town, and the place had that curated, barely lived-in feeling. Pale walls, spotless floors, framed prints of landscapes that felt more like placeholders than decorations. Ethan, still sleepy from the drive, had been handed off to the guest room upstairs while our friends finished dinner. I went to grab him some water. That was when I saw her. My daughter stood at the bottom of the staircase, barefoot, one hand resting on the banister, looking up. I stopped halfway across the living room. "Hey," I whispered, "you're supposed to be in bed." She didn't turn. "I am." "No, you're not." She tilted her head slightly, still staring at the dark landing above. "Not yet." The upstairs lights were off, all of them. The hallway at the top was a black rectangle. I moved closer. The banister was warm where her hand touched it. "You okay?" She nodded. "Who were you talking to?" "No one." She paused. "Someone." My stomach tightened. "Where?" She pointed upward. "Up there." I crouched next to her. "There's nobody there." "Yes, there is." I followed her gaze. The darkness didn't move, didn't shift, didn't breathe, just sat there. "You can't see him," she added. "Why not?" "He's standing too close to the wall." I swallowed. "What? Does he want?" She shrugged. "He keeps asking if I'm tired yet." Behind me, someone laughed in the kitchen. Dishes clinked. Normal. Warm. None of it reached the staircase. I took her hand. "Let's go back upstairs together." She hesitated, then nodded. As we climbed, each step creaked, except the one beneath her. That one was silent. Halfway up, she whispered, "He moved." I froze. "Where?" "Behind you." I didn't turn. Story 4. My brother was already inside the shed. The shed hadn't been there that morning. I was sure of it. We'd driven up to the old property just after noon. The half-collapsed farmhouse, the sagging fence, the weeds tall enough to hide rusted equipment. My brother Caleb had been joking the whole way about ghosts and buried treasure while we unloaded boxes from the trucks. Now it was dusk, and the shed sat at the edge of the field like it had always belonged there. Gray wood, tin roof, a single window clouded with grime. "Was that here earlier?" I asked. Caleb didn't answer. He was already walking toward it. "You don't remember that?" He called back over his shoulder. "No." He shrugged. "Looks normal." Nothing about it did. The grass around the shed was pressed flat, as though something heavy had been dragged back and forth between it and the tree line. The air smelled damp, metallic, oil and old water and something sweet underneath. Caleb reached the door. It was open. He leaned in. "You see anything?" He didn't wait for me. He stepped inside. "Caleb." No answer. I crossed the field, boots brushing through weeds that rasped against my jeans. The sun slipped lower, throwing orange light through the dusty window. "Caleb, stop messing around." The interior was darker than it should have been. Shadows clinging thick to the corners. Tools hung from hooks along one wall. Shovels, saws, coils of rope. Too neat for a place that looked this abandoned. Caleb stood in the center of the floor, still, facing the back wall. "What are you doing?" He didn't turn. I stepped inside. The temperature dropped, not chilly. Basement cold. "Caleb." He raised one hand, slowly, pointed at the wall. There were marks there, scratches, long, shallow grooves pressed into the wood, like something had leaned its weight against it again and again. "They were here already," he said. My stomach tightened. "They weren't here this morning." He nodded. "I know." I swallowed. "Then why are you standing so close?" He took a step forward. The wall bowed, just a little. like something had pressed back from the other side. Story 5. My friend wouldn't stop skipping stones. The lake was wrong in that quiet, lazy way that tricks you into thinking nothing is wrong at all. We'd hike down to it late afternoon, me, Jenna, Marcus, and Theo, following a barely marked trail through thick summer woods until the trees suddenly opened into water so still it looked poured instead of natural. No waves, no bugs skating on the surface, no breeze making patterns, just a smooth, dark oval tucked into rock and cattails. Marcus was the first to grab stones. "Watch this," he said, crouching near the edge and flicking a flat rock across the water. One skip, 2, 3. The ripples spread wider than they should have, long rings traveling all the way to the far shore before fading. "Nice," Jenna said. Theo frowned. "That sounded thick." Marcus laughed. "You guys are dramatic." He threw another. 4 skips this time, 5. Each tap sounded duller than the last. Not splashy, muted, like knocking on wet rubber. Jenna folded her arms. "Okay, that's weird." Marcus tossed again. The rock didn't skip, it sank. Straight down, no splash, no ripples, just gone. Marcus blinked. "Did you see that?" Theo crouched beside him. "Try another." Marcus did. Same thing. Drop. Vanished. The lake swallowed it like a hole in space. Jenna whispered, "That's not how water works." Marcus leaned closer. "Maybe it's deeper than it looks." He tossed a pebble. Gone. He reached for another stone. I grabbed his wrist. "Stop." He stared at me. "Why?" "Because something's off." He shrugged me off. Threw again. The surface dimpled, then bulged upward, just slightly, as if something beneath it had shifted. Theo stepped back. "Nope." Marcus froze. The bulge drifted sideways, slow, controlled, tracking the place where his last stone had vanished. Marcus whispered, "Guys." The water stilled again. No ripples, no waves, just glass. Jenna whispered, "Marcus, step away." He did. The bulge followed. He backed up. So did it. He swallowed. "It thinks I'm throwing food." Story 6. My wife wouldn't answer when I called her name. It started with the door, not slamming, not creaking, just being open. I was halfway through unloading groceries when I noticed the breeze drifting through the kitchen, lifting the edge of a receipt on the counter and nudging a cereal box sideways. The back door stood wide, screen rattling softly in its frame. My wife always locked it, always. We lived too far from town, trees crowding close around the yard, the woods pressing right up against the fence line in a way that made nights feel closer than they should. "Honey," I called. No answer. I shut the door and slid the bolt into place. It clicked louder than normal in the quiet house. The hallway light was off. She usually kept it on in the evenings. I carried the bags down the hall, calling her name again, louder this time. Still nothing. The living room was empty, couch cushions neatly arranged, TV dark. Her shoes were by the door. Her phone sat charging on the side table. She hadn't gone anywhere. The bathroom light was on. The door stood halfway open. Steam curled out. My stomach tightened. I set the bags down and walked toward it slowly, listening. The shower wasn't running. The sink wasn't dripping. Just warmth. The mirror was fogged, so thick I couldn't see my reflection when I stepped inside. "Honey?" I said again. Nothing. The towel on the rack was damp, freshly damp, like someone had just used it and put it back. I wiped the mirror with my sleeve. A clear oval appeared. The bathroom behind me looked normal, empty. Then I realized something was wrong. The reflection didn't show the hallway behind me, just more bathroom. Too much bathroom, like the room was deeper in the glass than it was in real life. I leaned closer. The reflection leaned too, just a fraction slower. My throat went dry. I lifted my hand. It followed. Late. Not much. Just enough to make my skin prickle. "Honey," I whispered, this time to the mirror. Behind me, the hallway stayed silent. In the reflection, a shape moved not behind me, behind the version of me in the glass, tall, blurred by steam, standing in the extra stretch of bathroom that didn't exist. I didn't turn. I stared straight ahead, pulse roaring in my ears. The shape lifted an arm. My reflection didn't. I backed out of the bathroom without breaking eye contact. The mirror kept showing the longer room. The fog thickened again, erasing it. I stood in the hallway shaking, listening for footsteps, for breathing, for anything. Nothing. I ran through the house. Bedroom, empty. Closet, empty. Laundry room, empty. Back porch, empty. My wife was gone, but the house was still warm in the places she should have been. The couch cushion indented, the bathroom towel damp, the air smelling faintly of her shampoo. I grabbed my phone and called her. It rang. From inside the house. Not her phone on the charger. From somewhere deeper. Behind the walls. Down the hallway. Didn't answer it. The ringing stopped on its own. Then, from the bathroom, came her voice. Soft, confused, calling my name. From the mirror. Story 7. My daughter kept waving at someone in the snow. It wasn't supposed to snow that night. The forecast had promised cold, sure, sharp winter air and clear skies, but nothing about storms, nothing about the kind of thick, silent snowfall that erases the world in under an hour. We were driving home from visiting my sister, headlights carving 2 pale tunnels through darkness, when my daughter pressed her hands to the back window. "Daddy," she said softly. I glanced in the mirror. "What is it?" "There's someone behind us." I checked the road, empty, just tire tracks stretching back into white blur, trees heavy with frost leaning over the shoulders of the highway. "I don't see anyone." She tilted her head. "They keep waving." My stomach tightened. "Who?" "The man in the coat." My wife twisted in her seat. "Sweetheart, there's no one there." "Yes, there is." She lifted her mitten and waved back. Slow, careful, like she didn't want to upset him. "Don't do that," I said. "Why not? He's cold." I slowed the car. Snow muffled everything. Engine noise, wind, the distant rush of nothing at all. The world felt padded like we'd driven into a soundproof room. I pulled onto the shoulder. "Why did you stop?" my wife asked. "To show you." I got out. Cold slapped my face, needles of ice in the air. The road behind us was empty except for drifting flakes in our own tracks. No footprints, no coat, no waving man. I climbed back in. "There's nobody." My daughter frowned. "He went into the trees." I turned around in my seat. What trees? The ones that weren't there before. I followed her finger. The tree line looked closer than it had a minute ago. Branches bowed under snow, black veins against white sky. "We should keep driving," my wife whispered. "I think so." I put the car back in gear. It didn't move. The tires spun quietly. Snow hissed. My daughter leaned forward. "He doesn't like when we stop." My pulse jumped. "Who?" "The man." "Where is he now?" She smiled. "Next to my door." I turned my head slowly. The back passenger window was fogged, not from breath, from cold. A handprint appeared on the outside, pressed flat against the glass. 5 long fingers, too long, sliding downward. My daughter waved again. "He says you can't see him because he's standing in the warm part." My wife whispered, Drive. I'm trying. The engine whined, the handprint stayed, then another appeared beside it. Lower, smaller, like a second set of fingers had joined the first. My daughter frowned. Oh, what? He brought someone. The snow fell harder, the tree line crept closer, and from behind the fogged glass came a soft sound, 3 gentle taps, right where her head rested. Story 8. My friend wouldn't stop walking into the fog. We should have turned back when the fog rolled in. It came off the valley floor in a slow white tide, swallowing the trail behind us first, then the trees, then the sound of our own footsteps until everything felt distant and padded, like the world had been wrapped in cotton. There wasn't fog on the forecast, Lena muttered, checking her phone for the 3rd time. No signal, of course. Tom kept walking, not fast, not slow, just steady, like he had a destination only he could see. Tom, I called. He didn't answer. Tom! I jogged a few steps to catch up, boots crunching softly on gravel that vanished almost as soon as my foot lifted. The fog thickened, 10 feet of visibility, 5. Tom's silhouette blurred ahead of me, long coat smudged into gray. Dude, slow down. He kept going. Lena whispered, he's not even looking around. She was right. His head was tilted forward slightly, eyes locked on something beyond the white. I grabbed his arm. Cold, not cold like skin, cold like metal left outside all night. Tom, stop. He turned, smiled faintly. I think I see the road. There is no road. He looked past me. You don't see it? No. He nodded slowly. That's okay. It's closer for me. I tightened my grip. The fog shifted, not wind-driven, intentional. It pulled around him, thinning in a narrow corridor ahead while staying thick everywhere else. Lena whispered. It made a path. Tom stepped forward. The fog moved with him. I stumbled as the ground dipped. Tom! He shrugged my hand off gently. It's fine. They're waiting. My stomach nodded. Who? He hesitated. The people that walked here before. A sound drifted through the fog. Footsteps. Not ours. Not Tom's. Many. Soft. Out of sync. Lena squeezed my sleeve. We're not alone. Tom took another step. The fog parted wider. Beyond it, something tall leaned sideways, barely visible through the white, like a shadow trying to stand upright. Tom lifted his hand. They're waving. I pulled him back hard. The fog rushed in, filled the space where he'd been going. The shape vanished. Tom blinked, confused. Where'd it go? We didn't answer. We turned around and found no trail behind us. Story 9. My brother kept calling from the basement. The basement light had been on all evening. That alone wasn't strange. We stored tools down there, holiday decorations, boxes we kept meaning to sort through. But my brother had gone down almost an hour ago to grab a flashlight and hadn't come back. I was halfway through washing dishes when I realized how quiet the house had become. No footsteps, no radio from his phone, no muttering, just a steady drip of the kitchen faucet and the faint electrical hum from the fridge. Eric, I called. Nothing. I shut off the water and listened. From beneath the floor came a sound, not movement, breathing, slow, careful, too slow for someone climbing stairs. Eric, I called again, louder. A pause, then his voice floated up through the vents. I found something. My stomach tightened. What? A room. I frowned. There isn't another room. There was a short laugh from below. There is now. I dried my hands and walked to the basement door. It stood open a crack, yellow light spilling out onto the hallway carpet. "You okay?" "Yeah," he said, too fast. I stepped closer. The stairs creaked under my weight, wood groaning with the familiar complaints of an old house. The air cooled the farther down I went, damp and mineral smelling, concrete and mildew layered under something metallic. "Where are you?" "At the back." The basement stretched longer than it should have. Storage shelves, water heater, workbench, then shadow. The back wall had always been bare cinder block. Now there was a doorway, no trim, no door. Just a tall, dark rectangle cut into the wall, like someone had erased part of the house. Eric stood in front of it, facing in. "What are you doing?" I whispered. He didn't turn. "Come look." I stayed on the stairs. "Turn around first." He shook his head. "You won't like it from here." I took another step down. The air shifted, warmer near the doorway, like breath. "What's inside?" Eric hesitated. "Another basement." I stared at him. "That's not funny." "I'm not joking." The light behind him flickered. For a second, his shadow stretched forward, into the doorway, longer than his body. Then the shadow moved, but Eric didn't. "Eric," I said slowly, "step away from it." "I can't." "Why?" "It keeps moving farther back." I leaned over the railing. "What keeps moving?" The pause was too long. "The floor." Something whispered from inside the doorway. Not loud, not a word. Just the sound of air passing over a mouth that didn't quite remember how to shape speech. Eric swallowed. "It knows my name." I backed up one step. The basement stairs creaked. From inside the doorway, a second voice answered. Mine, soft, calling him closer, and behind him, where the cinder block wall should have been, the darkness widened, like it was making room. Story 10. My wife kept setting the table for someone else. It started with an extra plate, not dramatic, just wrong. We were eating late, leftovers microwaved in mismatched containers, the TV murmuring in the background while rain tapped softly at the windows. My wife set down 2 plates across from each other like always, then paused, went back to the cupboard, pulled out a third. "You expecting someone?" I asked. She frowned at it like she didn't remember grabbing it. "No." She set it down anyway, in the empty chair. I watched her. She went back to the counter, scooped pasta into bowls. 3 bowls. I didn't say anything. Not at first. We sat. Steam curled up from our food. The 3rd plate sat untouched. The chair across from me was empty. "Did you..." I started. My wife cut me off. "Eat before it gets cold." I stared at her. "You made 3. She blinked, looked down. "Oh." She laughed weakly and picked it up. Halfway back to the sink, she stopped, stared at the plate again. "No." She turned around, put it back in the same spot. "Why did you do that?" Her brows knit together. "I don't know." I pushed my chair back slightly. "You okay?" She nodded too quickly. "Yeah, just tired." We ate in silence. I tried not to look at the empty chair. Every time I did, it felt closer. Halfway through dinner, my wife stood again, went to the drawer, pulled out another fork, set it next to the 3rd plate. Clink, careful, precise. "You didn't need to do that," I said. She didn't answer. She'd gone back to the cupboard. This time she took out a glass, then another, set both near the empty place. "Why 2? She blinked. "I don't know." The rain outside stopped. The house settled. The 3rd chair creaked, not from anyone sitting, just the sound old chairs make. when weight almost touches them. I whispered, "Stop." She froze. "What?" Setting the table. She looked down at her hands. They were already reaching for another plate. Slow, careful, like she was arranging something she couldn't see. She whispered, "I think." "What?" "I think they're late." My stomach tightened. "Who?" She stared at the empty chair. The people that live here." I didn't breathe. We'd lived there 5 years. I asked quietly, "How many?" She counted on her fingers. 4. But there were only 2 of us in the kitchen. The third chair creaked again. This time, it slid an inch closer to the table. On its own. Story 11. My son heard knocking under the floor. We were watching a movie when he said it. Nothing scary on screen. Some bright animated thing with talking animals and a soundtrack that never shut up. The living room lights were low, the house quiet except for dialogue and the faint hum of the heater. My son sat cross-legged on the rug, leaning against the couch. Halfway through a joke, he tilted his head. "Dad?" "Yeah." "There's someone under us." I didn't look away from the TV. "Probably the pipes." "They don't knock." "What?" He tapped the carpet. 3 slow thumps. Thud, thud, thud. Like that. I muted the TV. Silence rushed in. We waited. Nothing. "You hear it now?" I asked. He shook his head. Then, thud, directly beneath us. My stomach tightened. "Again," he whispered. Thud, slower this time, closer. I stood and pressed my foot into the rug. Concrete basement under that, no crawl space. Probably water heater. He frowned. "Why is it answering me?" I didn't. Thud, thud, 2 knocks, different rhythm. I crouched beside him. "Stop tapping." I didn't. Another knock, directly beneath where he'd been sitting. My pulse picked up. "Go sit on the couch." He didn't argue. As soon as he stood, thud, moved, followed him. My mouth went dry. We both stared at the rug. "What do they want?" he whispered. I shook my head. The knocking came again, slower, intentional, like someone thinking. Then, from under the floor, came a muffled voice, too deep, wrongly stretched, calling his name. Story 12. My friend wouldn't stop walking toward the campfire. Wex hadn't lit the fire ourselves. That was the first thing I was sure of. When we'd left camp earlier to grab more wood, the pit had been cold, gray ash, half-burnt logs, a ring of stones darkened by old use. We'd joked about starting it later once the temperature dropped. Now, coming back through the trees with arms full of branches, we saw orange light flickering between trunks. Real flame, crackling, warmth bleeding into the cool evening air. "That's weird," Sarah muttered beside me. "Did someone else come through?" "No cars," Josh said. "Roads miles back." The forest around us was dimming fast, sky bruising purple through the canopy. Birds had gone quiet. Even the insects seemed to have taken a break, leaving the woods heavy with that hollow twilight silence. The fire sat in the pit exactly where we'd left it. Neat, too neat. 3 logs arranged in a triangle, flames licking upward in slow, lazy tongues that didn't snap or spark the way campfires usually do. The light it threw was steady, golden, like it belonged in a photograph. Mark, my best friend since college, shifted the bundle of sticks in his arms. "Okay, who did this?" No one answered. Our tents stood exactly where we'd pitched them, zipped shut, shadows pooling around their bases. The cooler hadn't been touched. The folding chairs were still scattered where we'd left them earlier. but the fire burned like it had been going for hours. Mark stepped closer. Maybe some hikers passed through. They would have left tracks, Sarah said, nodding at the soft dirt around the pit. We all looked. The ground was smooth, no footprints, no tire marks, nothing but pine needles and dust, undisturbed. Mark dropped his wood. The branches landed too quietly. I'm gonna poke it. Josh frowned. Why? Because it's weird. He grabbed the fire poker from beside the pit, the same stick he'd been using all day, and leaned in. The flames bent toward him, not blown, bent, like something leaning to listen. Sarah whispered, "Do you see that?" Mark laughed once, sharp. Wind! There was no wind. The leaves above us didn't move. He nudged one of the logs. It shifted easily. Too easily. Like it wasn't heavy. Like it was hollow. "Guys," he said slowly, "this doesn't feel..." The fire popped. A single loud crack. Mark flinched. The flame surged brighter for half a second, then settled. His face went slack, not relaxed, empty. Mark took a step closer. "Hey," I said, "back up." He didn't. Another step. "Mark." Josh grabbed his sleeve. Mark shrugged him off without looking. "I think it's warmer than before." "You weren't here before." Sarah snapped. Mark tilted his head toward the flames, eyes reflecting orange light. "It feels like it knows me." I moved toward him. The heat coming off the pit was intense now, rolling over my face in thick waves that smelled wrong, not just smoke and sap, but something sweet underneath, like burning sugar or hair. "Mark, stop!" He lifted one foot, hovered it near the stone ring. Sarah grabbed his other arm. He pulled free, easily, way too easily. "I just want to stand closer." Josh swore. "What the hell is wrong with you?" Mark smiled faintly, not at us, at the fire. The flames bent again, higher, reaching. The shadows behind him stretched long across the dirt, thin and spindly, pointing back toward the woods, not away from the fire, toward it. I grabbed his jacket collar and yanked. He stumbled, blinking. "What?" The flames dipped, lowered. Mark swayed on his feet. "Why did you do that?" Sarah's voice shook. "You were stepping into it." He looked down, at the stones, at the fire licking just inches from where his boot had been. "Oh." He laughed weakly. "Guess I zoned out." The fire popped again, louder, closer. Mark's smile faded. "Did I?" Behind him, the forest creaked, not branches, footsteps, slow, careful, circling the light, and the flames leaned toward all of us now. We were 13. My daughter wouldn't blink during hide and seek. It was supposed to be a quick game, 10 minutes before bed. One last round while my wife finished brushing her teeth and I cleaned up the living room. The house was quiet in that soft nighttime way. Dishwasher humming, hallway light glowing low, curtains drawn tight against the dark. My daughter tagged the couch and laughed. "I'm hiding first." "Count slow," I told her. She grinned and ran down the hall. I turned toward the corner, put my hands over my eyes, and counted loud enough for her to hear. 1, 2, 3. Her footsteps faded. Closet door, bedroom, bathroom, I couldn't tell. 8, 9, 10. I turned. The hallway was empty. "Ready or not?" I called. "Here, I come." The house felt different once I started walking. Not colder, not darker, just quieter. The dishwasher clicked off. The hum stopped. Even the air sounded muted. I checked behind the couch. Nothing. Behind the curtains. Nothing. I smiled. Good hiding. No giggle answered. I walked toward her room. Door open, light off, bed untouched, closet closed, bathroom door halfway shut. I pushed it open, empty, the mirror fog-free, sink dry. My stomach tightened. Honey? No answer. I went back into the hallway and stopped. She stood at the far end, right in front of my bedroom door, facing me, completely still. There you are, I said, relieved. You win. She didn't smile. She didn't move. She just stared. Sweetheart? I took a step closer. Her eyes didn't shift, didn't blink, didn't track me. They stayed fixed on something just above my shoulder. What are you looking at? Nothing. No response. I crouched. Game's over, she whispered. Don't turn around. My skin prickled. Why? Because it's learning how you stand. I swallowed. What is? She blinked once, slow, wet, then added quietly, It doesn't need me anymore. Behind me, the floor creaked. Not footsteps, adjustment, like weight settling, and my bedroom door, which had been closed, clicked, unlocked. Story 14. My friend swam too far out. The lake was bigger than it had looked from shore. That was the first thing I noticed once we were in it. From the dock, it had seemed like a neat oval tucked into trees, water dark but calm, ringed with reeds and a thin strip of rocky beach. Once you started swimming, though, the opposite shore felt farther away than it should have, the tree line pulling back instead of closer. Race you to the buoy, Kara called. She kicked off before anyone could answer, cutting a white wake through the black water. Hey, I started. Too late. She was already halfway there. The buoy bobbed far out, a faded orange ball tied to something below the surface. It swayed gently in the water that otherwise didn't move much at all. I swam slower. Something about the depth under me felt heavy, like there was too much water. Kara reached the buoy and grabbed it, laughing. Cold as hell. She rested her arms over it, kicking lazily. Okay, come back, I said, in a sec. She stared down between her arms. Do you see that? See what? The rope. I squinted. The rope disappeared into the dark. That's normal. It keeps going. Yeah, it's tied to a weight. No, she said slowly. I mean, it's moving. My stomach tightened. Kara! The buoy drifted sideways. She drifted with it, not carried by waves, pulled. She let go. The buoy stayed. She didn't. The water tugged her another foot. She frowned and started swimming. Back, stopped. That's weird. What? It feels like mud. You're in water. She shook her head. No, like something thick, like syrup. I started swimming faster. She paddled harder, didn't gain ground. Her strokes made almost no splash. Kara, stop messing around. I'm not. She twisted in place. The water behind her dimpled just once, then smoothed out again. My heart thudded. Kick harder. I am. She tried again. Her legs jerked. Her body tilted. She gasped. Something touched me. I surged forward. Probably weeds. There aren't weeds out here. The buoy jerked. Hard. Water splashed for the first time. The rope went taut. Something passed beneath her. A wide shadow sliding through the dark. Kara! I shouted. She screamed, not loud, panicked, short. It grabbed my ankle. I reached out, missed. The water around her swirled, slow, controlled, not thrashing. Her body dipped, then popped back up. She sobbed. I can't see it. I grabbed her wrist, pulled. The resistance wasn't violent, it was steady, like pulling against someone who wasn't tired yet. My shoulder burned. Kara, kick! I am. The water bulged again. Another shadow moved, bigger, closer. I yanked harder. Her fingers slipped in my grip. I re-grabbed. The lake sucked at her waist. Her face went pale. It's standing. she whispered. What? On the bottom. My blood went cold. Story 15. My brother wouldn't step out of the elevator. We weren't even that high. 6th floor. A cheap downtown hotel with carpet that smelled like lemon cleaner and old smoke. The kind of place you stay when you're only in town for a night and don't care what the lobby looks like. The elevator had taken too long to get to us. That was the first thing my brother commented on. Stuck? He asked, tapping the call button again. The hush door slid open with a tired ding. Inside looked normal. Mirrors on 3 sides, brass rail, faded patterned carpet. We stepped in. He didn't. Come on, I said. He leaned in, peering at the ceiling. Hear that? I listened. The door stayed open. I didn't hear anything. What? Breathing. I frowned. It's the AC. He shook his head. It's counting. The doors began to slide closed. He stuck his foot in. They reopened. You getting in or what? He took 1 step inside, then stopped. 1 foot in the hallway, 1 foot on the elevator carpet, frozen. What's wrong? He stared at the floor. It's moving? The elevator wasn't moving. The arrow above the door stayed dark. The numbers didn't change. What do you mean? The carpet, he whispered. It's tilting. I looked down. It looked flat, patterned, ugly. Feels like I'm stepping downhill. I shifted my weight. Nothing. Come on. He shook his head slowly. I don't think it goes where it says. My stomach tightened. That's ridiculous. He didn't laugh. The doors tried to close again, stopped at his leg, opened. The inside of the elevator hummed louder, not mechanical, throaty. I think it's already going, he said. Going where? He swallowed. Down. Behind us, the hallway lights flickered. The mirror inside the elevator reflected me, reflected him. But the reflection behind him didn't match his stance. It leaned farther forward, like gravity worked differently in there. I grabbed his arm. Step back. He didn't. His shoe slid an inch across the carpet. Not dragged, pulled. He whispered, I didn't move. The floor indicator blinked, then 5, then 6 again. The doors tried to close, harder this time. Story 16. My daughter said the playground was too full. We stopped because she asked. That almost never happened. Usually it was 5 more minutes, or can we get ice cream, or I'm not tired yet. This time it was quiet and careful, the kind of request that makes you look in the mirror instead of answering right away. Dad? Yeah. Can we not go to that one? I slowed the car. The park sat beside the road in a shallow dip between rows of houses. Chain link fence, faded slide, 2 swings creaking in the breeze. A streetlight buzzed above it, washing everything in orange. It looked empty. Why not? I asked. She leaned forward in her booster seat, squinting through the windshield. It's busy. I frowned. I don't see anyone. She hesitated. That's because they're being good. My hand tightened on the wheel. Being good, how? Standing where they're supposed to. I pulled into the gravel lot anyway. The tires crunched too loud in the quiet neighborhood. My daughter didn't unbuckle. She just stared at the jungle gym. See, she whispered. I got out and walked a few steps closer, scanning the shadows under the slide, the platform, the little plastic tunnel. Nothing. Wind rattled the chains on the swings. The sandbox lay smooth and untouched. I looked back at her. Come on. She shook her head. They're on the climbing bars. There's nobody there. She pressed her palms against the window. Yes, there is. I walked closer to the fence, closer to the jungle gym. Still nothing. But as I stepped into the pool of light beneath the street lamp, the air changed, not colder, thicker, like humidity before a storm. "Dad," she said sharply. "Stop!" I froze. "What?" "They're counting you." My stomach dropped. I forced a laugh. Counting what? How many places you could fit? I turned slowly, scanning the bars. Metal rungs, empty, paint chipped, except the shadows didn't match. Too many lines crossed the rubber ground, beneath the structure, like there were bodies blocking the light. I took another step back. The shadows stayed. My daughter whispered, "One just moved." "Which one?" "The one that's going to take the slide." The swing creaked, not from wind, from weight. The chain dipped, then rose again. I backed away from the fence. My daughter exhaled. "They don't like when adults come." I opened her door fast. "Okay, we're leaving." She didn't move. "They said you're too big." My throat went dry. "Who?" She blinked up at me. "The kids that forgot to go home." Behind me, metal clinked. A ladder rung shifted, slow, careful, like something invisible adjusting its grip. I picked her up without closing the door, carried her back to the driver's seat, strapped her in, shaking. The swing behind us started moving on its own. Long, smooth arcs, back and forth, back and forth. I slammed the door, got in, and peeled out of the lot. In the mirror, the playground shrank. The swing kept moving, and for half a second, I thought I saw small shapes hanging from the climbing bars, perfectly still, waiting for the light to go out. Story 17. My friend wouldn't come back from the bathroom at the party. It wasn't even a big party, just one of those late 20s house gatherings. Too much beer, music low enough that people could still talk, someone grilling even though it was past midnight. The kind of night where nothing dramatic is supposed to happen. We'd taken over my friend Aaron's place while his parents were out of town. 2 stories, finished basement, long hallway upstairs with guest rooms no one ever used. Milo went to the bathroom about 20 minutes after we arrived. That alone wasn't weird. What was weird was how long he stayed gone. I noticed because I needed to go too, and because someone had cued the same song 3 times in a row without realizing it, which only happens when a party starts thinning out. "Anyone seen Milo?" I asked. A couple people shrugged. "He went upstairs," someone said. I checked the hallway, empty. Music thumped softly from the living room behind me. Laughter drifted from the kitchen. The upstairs felt sealed off from it, like sound didn't want to climb the stairs. I went up. The carpet runner muted my steps. All the doors were closed except the bathroom at the end, light glowing under the frame. "Milo?" I called. No answer. I knocked. Nothing. "Milo, hurry up." The light stayed on. I reached for the handle. Locked. "Seriously, dude?" Still nothing. I leaned closer. The fan was running. That soft white noise bathrooms make. Water dripping slowly in the sink. Drip, drip, drip. "Milo." Silence. Then, his voice, from the other side of the door. "I think something's wrong." My stomach tightened. "What?" "I can't see myself." I laughed once, reflexively. "In the mirror?" "Yes." "That's not, I mean at all." I froze. "What do you mean?" "The mirror. It's empty." I swallowed. "Milo, open the door." "I tried." "What do you mean you tried?" "It won't unlock from this side." The doorknob twitched under my hand. I jumped back. "Milo." "It's turning on its own." I stared at the brass handle. It wasn't moving now. "I didn't touch it," he whispered. "Move away from the door." "I can't." My pulse spiked. Why? Because something else is standing where I should be. Cold slid down my spine. What? His breathing got louder, shaky. There's someone in the mirror. Describe them. A pause. They're doing what I'm doing. The handle turned slowly. From the inside, stopped. Then, someone knocked. From inside the door. 3 slow taps, right where my face had been. Behind me, footsteps came up the stairs. Yo, what's taking so long? Someone called. I didn't look back. The bathroom light went out. Milo screamed. Then, nothing. No fan, no dripping, no breathing. Just a lock clicking open. The door swung inward. The bathroom was empty. Mirror clean. Sink dry. Window closed. Milo gone. And on the fog-free glass, fresh fingerprints slid downward. From the inside. Story 18. My son wouldn't let me close the door. It was raining, hard enough that the gutters overflowed, water rattling against the windows in steady sheets that blurred the porch light into a glowing smear. Thunder muttered somewhere far off, not close enough to scare, just enough to make the house feel smaller. My son stood in the doorway, not going out, not coming in. One hand gripping the frame, the other braced against the door itself. Buddy, I said gently, we gotta shut that. You're letting the rain in. He shook his head. Water dripped from his hair onto the hardwood. It's okay. No, it's not. I reached for the door. He pushed back, not hard, just firm. Enough that the door didn't move. What are you doing? He stared past me, toward the living room. I'm making space. For what? He didn't answer. Thunder rolled closer this time. The porch light flickered. I tried again. Come inside and dry off. He tightened his grip. It can't come in if I'm here. My stomach tightened. What can't? He finally looked at me, eyes wide, serious. The rain? That doesn't make any sense. He shook his head. It walks in the rain. Lightning flashed. For a split second, the yard lit up bright as day. The driveway was empty. The trees bent in the wind. The porch was empty. When the light faded, my son flinched. Don't look. Look at what? It changes when you blink. My pulse thudded. I knelt in front of him, keeping my voice calm. Who told you that? The knocking. My breath caught. What knocking? He glanced up at the doorframe. Up here. I followed his gaze. Fresh, wet prints dotted the top edge of the white trim. Finger-shaped, dripping onto the floor. Tap, tap, tap. From above us. Story 19. My friend wouldn't stop counting the seats. It was supposed to be a quick bus ride, downtown to campus, 15 minutes tops. Late evening, rain streaking the windows so everything outside blurred into orange streetlights and neon signs smeared into reflections. The bus was nearly empty, a couple in the back whispering over shared earbuds, an older guy asleep against the window, one woman scrolling on her phone near the front, and us, me and Nate, slouched across 2 plastic seats halfway down. Nate kept leaning into the aisle. I thought he was stretching at first, then he leaned again and again. Dude, I muttered. You... Okay. He didn't answer. His lips were moving. I glanced over. He was counting. Silent at first, just breath and tiny mouth movements. I nudged his knee with mine. What? He whispered. 7. 7 what? He frowned. Seats. I looked around, rows of blue plastic, some empty, some taken. What about them? There were 6, he said. I blinked. What do you mean? When we sat down. You didn't count. I did. That made my stomach tighten. He leaned out again, eyes scanning left to right. 8. I frowned. Stop. The bus hissed as it slowed for a stoplight. A new row of seats slid into view at the front. Not passengers, just seats. Empty, clean, like they'd always been there. But I was sure, absolutely sure, they hadn't. Are they adding seats? Nate whispered. No, they are. The bus lurched forward. Rain streaked harder across the windows. The couple in back laughed. The sleeping man didn't move. The woman near the front kept scrolling. No one else seemed to notice the extra row. Nate grabbed my sleeve. 9. I followed his gaze. The aisle felt longer, stretched, the front door farther away. How many are there supposed to be? I asked. He swallowed. However many people ride. That didn't make sense. Why? He pointed to the empty row closest to the front. There for later. For who? His mouth opened, closed. The ones that don't get off. The bus stopped. Doors hissed open. Nobody boarded. Nobody left. The driver didn't turn around. The doors shut again. Another row of seats slid into existence, right behind the driver. I felt cold. Nate whispered, 10. I stood up. The aisle dipped. Not slope. Dip. Like stepping into soft ground. The seats creaked. Not from weight. From readiness. Nate, we're getting off. He didn't move. I don't think I can. Why? He stared at the newest row. They picked spots. The bus lights dimmed slightly, just a touch. Outside, rain blurred the city into streaks. Inside, the empty seats gleamed, waiting. The driver finally spoke, without turning around. Please remain seated until your stop. I hadn't told him ours. Nate squeezed my arm. I didn't tell it either. The bus slowed, even though there was no stop ahead. In one of the empty seats, just one, creaked, like someone invisible had leaned back to get comfortable. Story 20. My wife kept answering the wrong questions. It started with something small. So small I almost ignored it. We were lying in bed, lights off, rain tapping the window in lazy, irregular bursts. I was scrolling through my phone while she stared at the ceiling, hands folded over her stomach. You remember Sarah from work? I asked. She said, yes. Too fast. I blinked. I didn't ask anything yet. She turned her head toward me. You are going to? I frowned. Okay. Do you remember her? She nodded. Yes. That was fine. Normal. I went back to my phone. A minute passed. You hungry? I asked. She said, no. I hadn't finished the question. I stared at her. She kept looking at the ceiling. No what? No, I don't think they saw me. My throat tightened. Who? She blinked slowly. The people outside. I sat up. There's no one outside. She turned to me. You didn't ask that. Yes, I did. No. She smiled faintly, not comforting, but light, like she was talking to a stranger. You were going to ask if they saw me. I swallowed. Why would I ask that? She shrugged. They're loud when they breathe. The rain against the window sounded suddenly heavier, or closer. I slid my feet onto the floor. What people? She hesitated. The ones that stand where the yard ends. I walked to the window, pulled the curtain back an inch. Dark yard, fence, trees, nothing else. They're not there. She nodded. That's what I said. You said they didn't see you. She smiled again. Same thing. Lightning flashed. For half a second the yard lit up white. The trees stood frozen. The fence gleamed wet. And near the back, a shape, tall, too thin, gone when the darkness rushed back. I froze. Behind me she said, softly, They're closer now.